Fantastic. Well, welcome and happy to have you here again for our incredible community. Thanks, Pat.
Yes, thank you all, and hopefully you all picked up a few items from Liz as she went through quite a bit information in terms of how to govern and maintain Copilot. So we're going to build on top of that a little bit here today as we talk about the workflows agent, or the ability to leverage a Frontier, an agent as part of the Frontier program, to make it so you can build workflows and automate things a heck of a lot easier. For those of you that have been around SharePoint workflows or just workflows in general for a number of years, you're going to see how much simpler this can be. But then also, there's always a caveat: how much more dangerous you can certainly be with it as well. So with that, as we take a look through today's session overall, we're going to talk a little bit about Frontier agents, so you have the ability to understand what those are. Understanding, obviously, for those of you that might be in the government space or the GCC high type environments, you don't have those available to you yet. But again, as we take a look at it, the workflows agent is relatively new. So as it continues to evolve and build, certainly it's something to be aware of, and certainly it helps the conversation in terms of where is this going to go in the future. We're going to walk through a few different agent examples. I have one built that we're going to essentially recreate for us. So we can see what that looks like. Arguably, much like what Don does on a monthly basis, which is a message center, maybe you need to keep track of that for your own organization and you get those emails in. We will go through the build process, how to manage, how to edit it. And most importantly, we are going to touch on where an administrator can actually see that these user agents are being generated and how they work. So again, with that portion of it, we are going to do a little bit of PowerPoint presentation and then some demo here as well for the next hour or so as we go through it. And again, just like Liz at the very end, if there are any follow-up questions or items, feel free to chime in and jump in. So first and foremost, that's me, Pat Petersen. I'm a director at RSM. RSM is a consulting, audit, and tax organization. For it, I lead the content and collaboration team, so I work with organizations doing all the fun things you all get to do on a daily basis. I am a Microsoft MVP and have been a Microsoft Certified Trainer since 2011, which is a long time, but have been active in the Minneapolis community here since 2012. And if you are in the South Metro or in the Apple Valley, Lakeville area, and you happen to see a AMC Pacer, chances are that's me. It is tucked away for the winter, so it is not coming out until the salt's off the roads. So if you want to connect, feel free to connect. Would love to connect with all of you as well for it. So let's dive into kind of what we're going to look at here for us. The first thing is, as we sit and think about the Frontier program, what is the Frontier program? As we think about the Frontier program overall, I'll just simplify it for you all. It's the beginning edge, right? You're at the beginning of it, right? So when we think about Frontier overall, it gives us access to the preview features, the things that are new inside of Copilot, or specifically inside of the agent type of experience. It also allows us to get our hands on different agents, such as the researcher, analyst. And when we think about those agents specifically, is it takes Copilot and it allows it to behave in a certain manner or in a certain way. And so I think that's a key takeaway for you all, is when you look at exploring and seeing what agents are available for you, it's taking it and allowing you to position it in an area that says, this is the type of work that I want you to do. No different than if you tell Copilot what you want or how you want those responses to be formatted. Essentially, with some of the Frontier, they're building some of those, we'll say, jump starter-like experiences for you. Then the other item is allows us to get early access to things. And so that's where you'll see things faster. So in Copilot in Excel, that's where you'll see app skills. Inside of Copilot Chat, that's where you see other agents available for you, like the app builder agent and the workflows agent overall. Also, when I say workflows, if I say workflow versus workflows today, They are the same in my brain, understanding that the name might quite match with what we're doing for it. So that will be the next word that Microsoft will overuse in 2026 is the word workflow. So adding to groups and teams and all the other different words, workflows will be the next one. The item I think that's important for us is the ability to do workflows. And so the outcome today will be the ability to just essentially provide a prompt that says, summarize this type of data, and on a daily basis, send me a Teams message in this format. And again, it's just text. So if you had to build that by hand, you would have to open up a variety of different tools, right? You'd have to open up Power Automate. You'd have to connect it to your mailbox potentially, or wherever the data is stored. You'd have to get the results and filter the results and query those appropriately so you don't return too many items. And then you'd also then have to generate that output and then automate where that output goes, right? So we're taking that multi-step process in this example and making it a little bit easier. From a joining perspective, it is just inside of your admin center to enable it. So I'm going to bring over my admin screen just so you have the ability to see kind of where that's at. And I'll drop in a quick link of the Frontier program if you're interested in reading more about it. So with that portion of it, let me get to my admin side. All right. So here, as we're taking a look from a Copilot perspective, I am just inside of settings over here on the left-hand side underneath Copilot. And as I come inside of the settings portion of it, this is where I can come to user access. And at the very bottom of my screen, you'll notice Copilot Frontier is available for me. And that Copilot Frontier is essentially where I have the ability to leverage the early hands-on access to some of those agents overall. So if you are in charge of your organization and want to try that out, keep in mind you do have the ability to choose all users. I do in my demo environment, but you can certainly isolate it down to some specific users as well. If you don't want to quite leverage everybody in the organization, you can choose to do that. So that's kind of step one here for us. Like anything, it's a Microsoft Minute in terms of those features becoming available to you. So again, from that piece of it, it may not be available to you immediately once you make that change or modification. So let's step back into really the workflows agent specifically. So when we think about the workflows agent specifically, really there's three things that come to mind. The first thing is that it's Copilot automation. So what that means is that you have the ability to basically state what you want, and it will build the workflow for you. So I can essentially come in and say, create me a summary every day at 9 a.m. about this topic and send it to me in an email. And that's going to do that for you. The key difference there is you can see in the middle area, instead of building a traditional step-by-step type of automation through Power Automate, or for those of you that have been around a while and the SharePoint Designer workflows, Nintex, K2, etc., you can essentially do it in plain language now. And so what that's going to do is it's going to make it easier for folks and users to automate things. And whenever I hear about something becoming easier for people, I always put my governance hat on and say, all right, if it's easier, is it going to be easier for the IT administrator? And the answer is maybe, right? The idea, though, is that users are going to use the platform more. But, not to kind of take a step back here a little bit and think about things for us, it's going to make it easier for users to build things. Now, the tricky part is, like any automation, if you think back to kind of the first automation or the first tool where users, build something, take Access databases or Excel spreadsheets that a user builds or has built, and now they become part of the organization. And that person leaves the organization, and now you're out of luck. So you got to be a little bit careful, right, with some of these processes that users are building. Quick answer the question that's in the chat from Jason. The Workflows agent is not the same as the Workflows app inside of Teams. It is different. The Workflows app inside of Teams is very much the manual, unless they brought Copilot into that. I'm not, I could be mistaken on that. But I believe they are completely separate for us. So I could be, now I just talked myself out. Maybe they brought Copilot in there and I just didn't check it. So if they did, then the answer is they're the same. If they didn't, then the answer is they're different. I believe they're still different.
Pat, I think you're all good. I think they
Okay.
are separate. I think we've got the workflows agent that's job it is to help you to build one. Keep going, Pat. You're on a roll.
Okay, no, perfect. I think it's key, you know, if I can see them bringing them together. So that's, I think, the key take. The other piece here, as we're thinking about it, is it has access to all of your own data. So when you look at the last portion there on the right-hand side, it can read your Microsoft's, you know, data itself. So it can read your emails. It can read your Teams messages. It can read your SharePoint data. So going back to Liz's statement earlier about, you know, controlling your data and sensitivity labels and that type of stuff that goes with it, it's important that it all works together. And so it can produce a variety of different outcomes. The example I'm going to run through here today is one that I think every administrator out there can certainly probably leverage and use for it. But it essentially takes all of our message center emails, sends us a notification the following day if there was anything important that was said. And so with that, you can obviously fine tune and make it be appropriate to your industry. But I've seen other organizations take this a step further and say, whenever something's posted publicly out there, go crawl the website and get me that information as well. The key piece is that it can schedule on demand or it can be scheduled rather or on demand, depending upon what you're essentially looking for your output. So when we think about using it specifically, I always take a step back and say, how does it change my life? How can I use it to my advantage? We all, you know, have a lot of unique features out there. My family just got a new car because we have a soon-to-be 16-year-old, and the car has the ability to recognize who the driver is, which is a little bizarre for us. And at first I was like, this is really, I don't get this. I don't understand how that's an advantage to me. And what I quickly realized is that I can program it to be my Bluetooth connection or CarPlay connection when I sit in the car, when I'm in the driver's seat. And then when another family member, then it can be somebody else. And it can default and it can save that fraction of a second for it. So when I think about these types of tools, you have to take a step back and say, okay, this is neat, but how is it going to change the way that I work? Because frankly, if you look at all the applications and all the tools that are built out there from Microsoft and other vendors, there's no way that you can leverage all of them to their highest advantage, right? Because there's overlap. There's little things where one tool does it better for you for it. So when we think about it, how have I seen it used? And the first one is those operational summaries. I get a lot of emails. You all get a lot of emails, I'm assuming, as well. And so when you think about the operational side of the house, taking those digests and summarizing those so they're easy to look at. So if you're part of an industry type of digest that sends you new industry news every single day or every single week, that's one element, but maybe you need to refine that one step further. So instead of it being just the email, now you want to take it a step further and say, okay, rank these for me. This is what I'm interested in. Highlight these for me so I know where I'm prioritizing my time. That's leveraging the assistant side of the house. And yes, I know you can manually do a prompt for that. We're going to actually do that to show you the difference between scheduled prompts and workflows agents. So you get to see the difference between there. The one that I'm going to walk through again is the service center. But again, you can use that in terms of approvals and notifications. And then I think the key kind of thing to think about is the reducing swivel chair between applications. We all love, maybe I'm making a generalized statement here, but I think we mostly love having two monitors. Some of you have 3, some of you may have 4, some of you may have 5 different monitors on your desk. And what that tells me is that you're bouncing between applications a lot. And so when we think about these tools, how can they help reduce the swivel chairing aspect of it? And I go back to a meme or like it's posted online as kind of a joke about the different types of employees and how many monitors they have, right? And so I think, yeah, I'm totally spying on you in the amount of monitors. So when I think about that, right, when we think about those bouncing between, take that one instance and say that could be a good use case, and then try it out, right? So I think that's key. So with that, we're taking a look at a variety of different things. The governance piece always come to mind. The key piece is that the agents that you build or the workflows you build as part of the agent does follow your existing Microsoft 365 governance. If you're in a large organization and they have generative AI actions disabled, you will not be able to follow along. So there are different items that need to be allowed in order for you to follow along today. This is recorded. I have a blog post written, and the entire presentation is linked at the bottom of the blog post as well if you're interested in seeing it. So it does not elevate the privileges. It does not give access to more things. You can see it inside of the Power Automate Admin Center. Key pieces is that you should name them clearly and obviously document what the process is doing. Just like personal productivity, how many of you have, no raise of hands, you don't have to, but we've all built things and labeled it as test or some other different item that's out there. I think it's key to say this is now a time to say, how do we want to name it to make sure that we understand when we're looking back in 6 months if we're actually leveraging it or using it as well. The other item is administrators do have the ability to control the connectors and the DLP policies, kind of adding on to what Liz mentioned as well. So if you are someone that tries it out and you can't quite get there or it doesn't quite work, please work with your administrator because there are items that can be tweaked or adjusted appropriately. All right, so that's kind of the base knowledge or background for it. So now let's dive into the actual example here for us. So when we think about what an agent, I always struggle with keeping up with what's new. And oftentimes when I think about keeping up with what's new, I review some of the items, you know, whether it's a variety of different, the Message Center show, this monthly meeting where Don does a good job walking through a variety of different Message Center items, or whether it's, you know, Twitter or X, I should say, LinkedIn, etc. We all have our different ways of keeping up to date. The easiest way I think some of us forget about is we can subscribe to Message Center emails that send us an email on a daily basis or on whenever there's something major that's happening and changing. Now, I did do a count. In the last week, my personal tenant, which has a whopping 6 users in it, received no less than 12 Message Center emails. And I did not read a single one of them, right? I glance over them. They actually go to a folder. I don't even look at them at all for us. So again, as we're thinking about it, how do we make it be something that when we get up in the morning or when we're reviewing our tasks or when we're planning for the next week, we have that already handy right in front of us. So again, when we think about the Message Center agent, the concept that I came up with was that it essentially reviews the items that are sent to me in Outlook from the specific email address it's coming from. So I'm already giving it that filter command. I want it to filter out the duplicates. I want it to include that information. I want it to send me a message at 9 a.m. every day. And again, I can modify that and say only on, you know, major days or something of that nature. I chose a Teams message because frankly, I look at those on a more regular basis than I do my email. And I think some of you are probably that way too. Why does this matter, right? So I always like to say, why does it matter, right? It's like if you ever work with somebody else and you delegate or tell someone else to help you out and assist you on any work, you sometimes have to tell them why it matters, right? Why is it important for you to help me? So when I think about this, why does it matter? It saves me time. I don't have to go through every single message and read through it or summarize each one individually through the Outlook Copilot component. I also have the ability to make sure that I'm not missing something, right? Copilot doesn't get tired. Copilot doesn't take a day off. And so when we think about that piece of it, that's the advantage for you, is that if you wanted to take 2 weeks off at the end of the year, you could, because when you come back, it's all going to be there as well. The other item is that I'm keeping Teams as a single pane of glass as well, for us to be able to look. So I think that's the key takeaway here for us on, what the agent is and why does it matter. All right. So with that piece, let's jump into some example prompts for you as well. So when we think about the example outputs, this is from last month when I initially prepped this presentation. So it's not from, yesterday or the previous week. It's actually, I think, from like the 15th or 16th of December. So still pretty recent for us. As we can see, we have two different types of messages for us to be able to see along the way, or outputs. Again, I chose Microsoft Teams, and we can format this however we choose. As you can see, for us, we have the ability to see some of the full list, some information that gets brought into what that items are. If there's any actions for us for the day, we have the ability to keep track of those actions. Again, you can fine tune and read through and make modifications and changes however you choose. But with that here, it doesn't have me, the ability if there's any action for me to do. So here you can see on that one, there were some actions that were highlighted for me to keep track of and to take a look at. So again, when we think about managing the type of information we get, the more that it can summarize, right? That's why digest became a thing, because they took this whole large set of information, summarized it down for us into a digest. We're taking the digest and making it be appropriate or applicable to us. Maybe our job role is a SharePoint administrator. So when I see the auto archive for Exchange, I want to say, ignore everything related to Exchange. That's not my job. I would argue and say they all work together. So you may not want to go that far, but maybe you put it towards the bottom of the list, right? You say prioritize the items that are related to SharePoint or Teams or collaboration experience overall. All right. Let's take a step and let's talk about two different types, I guess more than two different types, but two different kind of sets of agents here overall. So as I take a step back and I built that agent, and we'll demo this in here in just a moment, I always say, okay, what are those other agents that I can leverage and to build, right? So what are those other pieces that are like, maybe I should invest some time and energy in those as well. And these are the ones I came up with. The middle one, I think, is a no-brainer. For those of you that, are in charge of your licensing, that's probably a no-brainer here as well, right? And so when we think about this, this is a key component of, potentially saying, all right, we want to keep track of our licenses. The other one here, I think if you're in charge of the training or change management type of experience, that's kind of a key. You don't care about the archiving of Exchange. You care about what the end user impact is. So maybe you change your prompt or give it different directions to say, hey, when returning these results, put your lens on as you're a trainer or you're, having to communicate these items out to others. I think the other piece here is the admin task piece of it. I don't know about you, but I get a lot of emails saying I'm overdue and late on things. Some of them are true, some of them I knew about, some of them I didn't know about for it. So again, that's another area where like, hey, I get a lot of those and maybe I want to pull those out a little bit. So again, you all have instances where you're like, gosh, I have too much information. Maybe it's a chance for me to summarize it and allow me to see things a little bit quicker and more accurate. Now, that's from an administrator side. If we take a step back and we say, how about from an end user side, I think the key piece here is, gosh, the meeting follow-up agent. I don't know how many times you all join meetings, but for me, it's a lot. And it would be really nice that at the end of a meeting, I just got an automated message that said, here's what we talked about, and here's the summary, without somebody having to do it. Focus time protection agent. This is one that I laugh about quite a bit. for us. For those of you that get overloaded with calendar appointments and other items, that could be one where you're like, hey, this might be important. When you're creeping up towards the 6 hours of meetings a day, send me an alert so I know not to accept any, right? Or start to tentative some of those. So again, there's a lot of different ways you can start to do it. I'll be fully transparent. I haven't built all these. These are just ideas. So from a brainstorming perspective, certainly some brainstorming pieces out there. All right, so let's go ahead and let's build our agent. So when we think about how to access our workflow agent, these are the directions. I'll walk you through those in just a moment, but essentially inside of Copilot Chat or Copilot Experience, when we look at workflows, and we'll see those available for us. And then for it, we do have the ability to edit those overall. The next thing I'm going to just flash on the screen, here's the prompt we're going to use. I will put this in chat if anyone would like to follow along. You're more than welcome to put this inside of your environment as well. I will also show you how to disable and delete something prior to actually building anything. So if you did want to go back and then disable it or modify it, you certainly have the ability to do. We will come back in just a moment once we build this. And I think the key piece that I want to make a quick mention for is the way that this prompt is written. So before we jump into build, I want to be very clear. The way the prompt is written is a very important step. If we're not specific, if we don't have a goal in mind, if we don't have context, or we don't tell it when or how to execute, we're not going to get the right result. So when I built that prompt, I had these lens on, and I know that there's different iterations on what you could look at and in different orders and all those things with it. Again, use whatever method you like to build prompts. But what I always like to say is, what is my goal? What do I hope to accomplish here? And so in this one, I'm to monitor my agents to monitor message center related emails, produce a clear, actionable summary, and deliver it into me in Teams. All right, what's the scope? I think the key scope here that I have written is the dedupe of similar or repeated advisories. I don't know about you, but sometimes it's the same thing over and over and over again. You're like, I've seen this already. I've seen this already. I've seen this already. Now, I will tell you point blank that statement right there makes it very, what's the right word? Difficult to run this multiple times a day and expect it to continue to produce results. Because I'm essentially saying, hey, ignore everything that's before this or ignore anything that's been mentioned already. Right? So you got to be a little bit careful with something like that. And then the context, where to look, and then execute. How do I want to execute? What do I want to prioritize? Those types of pieces. So let's jump in and I'll show you the experience here so far. All right. Again, if you'd like to follow along, feel free to follow along as well for us. So I am just inside of Copilot Chat in the browser. You can use the desktop app as well if you'd like to for us. So when we think about a variety of different components and items for us, we do have the ability to see some of the frontier items here. I also have an agents or a variety of agents that are listed there. I'm going to pretend that you don't have the frontier agent already pinned here, or the workflows frontier agent already pinned here. So I'm going to click on all agents. When I click on all agents, this is where I'm going to start to see some of the different agents that are built. And what we're focusing on is the workflows agent built by Microsoft here for us. Again, you can see all the other agents that are out there. Hopefully you're leveraging and using the research or analyst agent. You can see some of the featured agents down at the bottom, as well. There's quite a few different agents or specifically roles, if you will, that have been built here in the last couple of months inside of the agent type experience. Again, you do have to have a Copilot license, and your organization does need to enable the Frontier experience for you, and then you'd have the ability to see that. So again, if I click see more, you're going to see some of your older ones you may have used previously, like the prompt coach, maybe even the writing coach, and other ones that are there for us too. But again, I'm going to leverage the Workflows Frontier agent for us. So I'm going to click on it. When I click on it, you can see some of the items here as well. This is where you can read more about it and some of the features about it. I'm going to just click on open here for us. There we go. Whew. I thought I was going to have to do this manually from a demo perspective. That was a bit of a blip. All right, it's because we all clicked on it at the same time. So when we think about the workflows agent, this allows me to describe the type of workflow that I want to get into and start to see for us. So when we think about that prompt overall, I'm going to flash open the prompt again on the screen, and I'll copy it back here for you all to take a look at. Oops. All right. So the prompt that we're focusing on here is essentially, you are my message center agent. Every weekday, review the 365 admin emails in my mailbox. Obviously, you can see a variety of different things. Email address is, Office 365 MC at Microsoft to review my entire mailbox in case one is not in a folder. Extract and categorize those, dedupe, create a Teams message, and we saw that kind of information there for us. Run it daily and send us a Teams message at 9 a.m. the following day. If there's 0 new items, send a new message that says there's no new message center updates. I don't know about you, but I always like to provide the tone, keep it concise, admin friendly, no hype, and no hyphens. So with that, I will go ahead and paste this prompt in here real quickly, so you have the ability to see it. All right. I apologize if it's going to paste really large. That was not my intention, but at least you can see that prompt overall. Again, if you want to modify it or make it your own, please feel free to go and do that. I just like to highlight how in-depth the prompt can be. All right, coming back to our demo here for us. So when we're looking at the idea of building that out, I'm essentially going to just paste this item directly in here, okay? And you can see it took the formatting away. If I expand this out a little bit, actually, it's not going to make it any bigger. But if I expanded it out, it was smaller, we'd be able to see it. But again, I'm giving it all of that information. If you were doing this back in Nintex days or SharePoint Designer days, you would have hopefully taken a bunch of Post-it notes or at least documented what you wanted, right? You sketched it out. You put it in a diagram and you said, if this, then this, if this, then this. This is going to essentially allow us not to have to do that, right? I'm basically saying, here's where the data is and here's what I want to have. Now go figure out how to do it. You can see I have a few different items created along the way at the bottom. So again, I tested some of these out just to make sure that everything was working correctly. So here you can see my existing workflows. So if I did want to delete or turn one off, I certainly could do that as well. The name of your workflow is actually coming from this first statement here. So I'm going to say, I'm going to say MN Message Center Digest Agent, so it knows enough to be slightly different. All right, I always like to live life on the edge here, folks, so I'm going to go ahead and click on Send. I will come back and show you how you could do this with a scheduled prompt as well. If you don't quite want to do this inside of Workflows agent, you could certainly build a scheduled prompt and get some of these outputs as well. Yeah, exactly. We're excited to announce, yes, all of the exciting things of the hype. All right, so here we can see it is going ahead and building this along the way, and this is where we wait. This is where it's going through analyzing our pieces. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've done this a few times here, so it doesn't take too long, but you can start to think about where is it going. And specifically, as it builds that workflow, you're going to see, and as I freeze my screen, you're not going to see it build, but you can start to see the different actions that it builds along the way. No different than if you built it in Power Automate, you can see the actions that are built in for us. So you can start to see it, okay, it's going to, every day at 9 a.m., it's going to run. Perfect, it got that. Then it's going to look for anything in my inbox where the subject or body contains Message Center, Admin Center, whatever, MC, Incident Advisory, etc. And the sender is this. Then it's going to go through, and this is where the AI comes in. It's going to come through and extract and normalize those pieces. Again, if we just said, hey, we want a digest of everything, all of our emails that were sent to us about this topic, or more or less from this person, we wouldn't need AI for that. That's just simple automation. When we start to use the AI portion of it, this is when we say, okay, how do we want it crafted? What type of information matters to us? And so this is where we can see it extracting and normalizing the information for us that we're wanting. And then here's where we can see the digest down at the bottom, that it's extracting and normalizing the message center items. Notice what it's doing. If you pay attention, that is the same as that. This is the same as that. So hopefully you're starting to see how it's connecting kind of the dots together for you. I think I want to be very clear here that I do not recommend that you build entire enterprise workflows in this agent, right? These are very personal productivity focused, right? So personal productivity. What can you do to help your day-to-day type of work out? So here I can see from this side of it, it did build it. There's the information. There's the trigger. There's the search. There's the processing, the output. Here's the assumptions that it's going to search all relevant emails in my inbox. It's going to post it to Microsoft Teams as a chat with Flowbot. And again, for any of you that have built a workflow, you know that that action allows, you know, slightly different depending upon how you want it to post for us. If there's, you know, any 0 items it has there, I can obviously ask it to do more. Now, what you'll notice is that there's no ability for me to make a change or a modification in that panel in the right-hand side of my screen. If I want to make a change, I have to use natural language, which works as long as you can describe what you want to have changed, right? So right now I said daily at 9 a.m. Maybe I'm going to make a change and say, make this happen at 6 a.m. every day. Now I'm going to basically say, okay, is this going to understand? It's analyzing my request, taking my request and saying, okay, what does Pat really want to do with this? Okay, I'll just update the workflow trigger to be 6 a.m. instead of 9 a.m. Got it, understood. Right? So again, if you want to modify it or alter it or, change the way it looks or feels, this is the experience you have for us. So here you can see it essentially made that change on my screen, and I have yet to save it, which is always dangerous. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the save button here real quickly. As I click on that save button, it's saving that workflow in the background that will also allow me to test it out. Now, like I said, I've been having issues with the dedupe clause in my inbox. So with the dedupe, it essentially is saying, I've already done this, Pat. I can't do it again. So I'm not quite sure how to get over that, except it did work for a period of time. It's just any of my new ones that get posted, it's not working from an experience perspective, and I would have to probably remove the dedupe type of factor out. So when I click back on the workflow item here for us, you can actually see that now that test icon or the test item is available for me. So I can go ahead and click on test. Now, when I click on test here, it is going through that test run just like you would with Power Automate. So it's running through the appropriate testing. It's going through, we can start to see it going through and testing those items. In fact, if you're a Power Automate person, you fully understand some of the actions and connections that it's using along the way. So here you can start to see that information come through for us. So again, as we're kind of leveraging and utilizing that overall, we have the ability to test it and make modifications and changes to that for us. So you're going to actually see this come through, and we can start to see some of the items as it's coming. Now with that, as it's kind of running in the background, I do want to jump into where an administrator can monitor and manage this. So from an administrator perspective, they do all show up inside of the Copilot Studio Power Platform Center, Admin Center area. So where I'm at here for us, I'm inside of the Power Platform Admin Center. I'm inside of Copilot Studio. And here we can see, I guess my one isn't quite named the right thing. I probably should ask it to get named better. for us. It's one of these top two, I believe, for us to take a look at. But since they were both modified and created for us, I thought by putting the MN in front of it would be better. Let me actually come back to the workflow here, and I'm going to rename it. But essentially, these are where those kind of workflows are at for us, and I can see what environments they're built into as well. And so it is going to leverage the personal productivity or that user's default environment for us as well for you to take a look at. All right. So with that, where that comes through along the way then is I'll just bring over kind of the message here for us. This is where you can start to see that come through along the way. There's the actions for us inside of our workflows portion with inside of Teams for sending us a message. So again, it's an ability for us to take items that are in our email and essentially bring those back through. If you don't get the Message Center digest sent to you, of course, you have the ability to change that and update that as well. So let me go ahead and let me jump back to my agent here real quickly. I think it's this one. I'm going to ask it to change the name. Can you change? True. Let's see if that changes the name for us. Again, you just got to see how confusing that can be for us. So again, keep that in mind from a naming item here as well. Hopefully I'm able to change the name along the way for us, but it does, I don't know where else you change the name though. So we're limited a little bit from that piece of it. So let's just see if that does that. There we go. Looks like it is changing the name, keeping the rest of the workflow details all the same. So you do have the ability to make those modifications for us. Now you can see it triggered saying that we've made a change. I'll go ahead and click on save. As it clicks save here, again, I do have the ability to test it if I made a modification to something. Let's see how quick that made that change. Did it update it here quickly? Not quite there yet. I believe it will come back. Should be here by the end of the session today, but that's where that should be for us to see that. All right. So with that here, now we can start to see some of the, the activity in terms of where it ran, some of the pieces there. So if you have a workflow that starts to fail or bomb out, you have the ability to come in here and start to analyze and see some of the history as well. So for the last few minutes, I'm going to actually jump back into Copilot chat for us, and we'll see kind of that experience of scheduling a prompt overall. I think I just muted someone. We had a little bit of an echo there. So if there was a question, feel free to come off of mute, or feel free to put in the chat message as well if you'd like to. All right, so if I come back out to Copilot chat, you can see there's the information there. Now I'm gonna cheat a little bit here for us, and I'm gonna create a brand new prompt. And again, some of you might say, okay, Pat, I don't have, I don't necessarily have the ability to do what you just went through and did, but I wanna do an element of it, right? And so I'm always a fan of, okay, that's the workflows agent. What you saw there is the workflows agent. So there's not a whole lot more to it other than it's probably making you think a little bit more about, all right, how am I going to manage this thing? How are users going to use it? How do I make sure someone doesn't build an entire business process based upon it? Like we all know can happen with a variety of different tools, access databases, SharePoint sites, workflows and Power Automate. So there's a little bit of governance that needs to come from a conversation piece. I wouldn't say turn it off though, right? Because it's one of those pieces where there's a lot of value that can come from it itself. So here I'm inside of chat, and what I want to make a quick mention of is that if I just come in here, I'm going to go ahead and choose the prompt here. So this is one, as you take a look at it, it references somewhat identical to the one that I shared with you as well. I'm in Copilot chat, right? I'm in Copilot chat. I'm going to go ahead and click on this to send. This is a feature that I saw today, and I honestly didn't know it existed, right? So I gave it a prompt. I said, you're my Message Center digest agent. Each workday, review my messages and do this for me. Now, you may say, okay, Pat, that's the exact same thing you did in the workflow agent. You're right, it is. However, by me doing it directly in Copilot in the chat experience, look at what it's doing. To set this up, I'll schedule a recurring prompt. So if I did that exact same prompt here versus the workflows agent, it's still allowing me to schedule a prompt. So when we think about that here overall, there's the items. Should I start and schedule tomorrow? What time zone do I want? Do I want it to run indefinitely? So again, I have the ability, like start tomorrow, end of the month, Central Time. You're all familiar with some of those options that are available for you. The reason why I want to show you this here is because, like I said, I didn't realize that this was a possibility, that I don't have to give it a prompt and then choose schedule. I can essentially just give it a prompt that says schedule and it listens to me. So here's where I can see there's my scheduled prompt. And now I have a simple kind of adaptive card for me here to click on confirm. And as I click on confirm, it is essentially scheduling that for me as well. Granted, this is not going to go into Teams. This is not going to post me a message inside of Teams, right? Because that's really the key piece that we're leveraging here. But if you don't want it in Teams, if you just want to get prompted on a consistent or regular basis, this is an option for you to look at as well. Again, I'm going to show you where those scheduled prompts are located here for you. But the key kind of takeaway or item there is that if you don't want to fully build a workflow, but you want some of those scheduled prompt items and you want to give it more clear directions on what you want to do, you have the ability to do that. And so here you can see there's my item. It's running every day at 8 a.m. There's my prompt that's scheduling. And if you wanted to see your scheduled prompts, it's within inside of the ellipsis to the upper right-hand corner. And then I can click on scheduled prompts. And from a scheduled prompts portion of it, there you can see my 2 items that are there. Again, I ran it as a test. So now I have 2 scheduled prompts to come through. And if you're not familiar with what a scheduled prompt is, that's a prompt that will run and stay within inside of the chat experience for you. So when you open up chat, you'll see that that prompt had run for you. So again, when we think about leveraging these tools, right, they don't forget to run at 8 a.m. because they just know to run at 8 a.m. So leveraging them as a support assistant for you is really key for it. So again, with that, yes, I can certainly showcase that the other way of scheduling a prompt. Christine, I appreciate you putting that in for scheduling a prompt. Kind of I'll say the old way, because frankly, as we're taking a look at this aspect of it, I didn't know that if I put, to run daily, it would just assume and understand, hey, you want to run this every day. So that was my one kind of unknown for it, and it may have been around for a while, and I just hadn't actually tried it out at all. But again, if you need to showcase a random kind of quick win or tip for you, you do have the ability to do that. The prompt aspect of it, like what Christine had mentioned in chat, is you do have the ability. Again, if you hover over a prompt, you can click on that little kind of clock icon. When you click on that clock icon, this is where you have the ability to schedule the prompt that way. And then, yes, it can email you and tell you when it's ready as well if you keep that box checked. So again, you have a few different options to do something similar to that. So what I always like to say, if you're not quite ready for the workflow, you could go and build it as a scheduled prompt, make sure it's working the way that you want, and then kind of build upon it a little bit and move it into the workflow type of agent piece overall. So with that, let's jump back into our deck here as we kind of wrap up the session here today. I do want to take one more step back here to take a look at the way to do the prompts. And when I think the key item here is that your outputs depend upon how good your prompt is. If I just did a prompt that says, review my message center emails on a daily basis and send me a summary, it's not as good, right? It's not going to prioritize. It's not going to set those up for me It's not going to format them the way that I want to be, the way that I want to see it. So again, that's where you really need to think about and dissect your prompts and build upon your prompts a little bit. And so that's where you can add more to it. And the prompt coach is one kind of area to help with that. All right. So we went through the demo portion of it. Let's just reiterate kind of the manage portion of it. So when we think about the managing portion of it, we do have the ability to turn those off. That's inside of the workflows agents. We can turn them off or delete them. There are some messages about what to do if you delete them and what happens to those workflows. So again, be very careful if you delete one of them. It will kind of go through and delete the workflows like you would expect. So you may want to review the activity and make sure that it's not doing something that you want to do. I'm unaware of a way to restore those for it. So I always like to say, if you create one, the best thing now is instead of documentation, you just need to keep track of the prompts. You just need to save your prompt for your documentation, because if you needed to recreate it, you could certainly provide that prompt again. All right, so yeah, can't be undone. If we do need to edit it, again, keep in mind from an editing perspective, that's where you have to leverage natural language to edit. And what I'll be honest with you about is that becomes very difficult from a fine-tuning approach. If we need to fine-tune something and make just a quick modification, natural language takes some time, right, to go through and do that. What you also see is you didn't have any control over those connections, right? If you wanted to make a change, you'd have to go and actually write it out for what you want that change to be, which, if you don't know how to do it, is probably the quicker way. But for something like this, where you know what those emails are called, you know what that connection is doing, you know how you want it sent to you inside of Teams, you could say it could take a little bit more time for it. This is probably a pretty simple example, but I wanted to walk through one from start to finish here in a little less than an hour. And then from an administration perspective here, you can see the screenshot of where that workflow was. And again, the naming piece of it, that does have me reminded, is the naming thing fixed yet? I'm just checking here on my screen. Look at that, it did update the name. So I am excited about that. It did make the change. So it did what it said it was going to do for us. I'm not sure if we broke something else in the background at all with changing the display name, but at least now we can certainly see that as well. And then from that side of it here, as we're taking a look, we'll just open it up if anyone has any questions, and thank you for your time today. I know, Liz's topic with SharePoint Advanced Management can be a little bit, deep. I think as we're taking a look here from the workflows agent portion of it, certainly can have a lot of different, information and items that come, available to you all, and how you can leverage that in your own day-to-day life. So a few things to remember. You do have to be part of the Frontier program, so make sure your administrator enables that. If you have trouble publishing, it probably means there's a DLP restriction based upon a connector. So you may need to review that, but it does alert you and tell you that you can't use it because of a connector. Generally, it's the generative AI connectors, or it might be using some preview ones. So if your organization has specific restrictions in place on leveraging preview connectors, that's where the issue comes in. And I think the key piece here is that it does, Christine, you summarized it, I think a good way is it's going to drive maybe more end users to build those workflows, which is really valuable. But again, from an administrator perspective, we probably want to monitor that to make sure users aren't building entire business processes. So with that, we'll open it up if anyone has any questions or comments at all. It does. So Tim, good question. It does build with inside of the connector TLP policies. I can tell you that for sure, because in my corporate environment, I'm not able to use it. So we have a DLP policy around data. So yes, it does honor those existing Power Platform DLP policies. Yep.
Looks like Jeff has a question.
Hey, Pat, real quick, you were showing us from, was that a personal account that you were using for the demo, or were you using a developer tenant?
A developer tenant with a
Yes.
E5 and Copilot license.
Yeah, so I've got that enabled, but I don't see, I'm seeing Opal Frontier, not, is it that the tenant's not updated? That I'm not seeing I see
might-
Opal Frontier.
Do you see anything below
Are you
Opal
in-
Frontier on the admin side?
I am on, when I'm looking in I've got Copilot overview, but then I go to settings. The only option I have that has even Frontier around it says Opal. I can share my screen if I can.
I can maybe
Yeah, I wonder if
send you a
There-
message
yeah, there-
afterwards. I think
there's
you're on this
a-
screen and you're not seeing it
yeah.
down below.
Yeah, there you go.
There are a number of agents that are from Microsoft that will have Frontier in parentheses after
Correct.
the name of that agent. And so this is just another one.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. So did you go over to then the Copilot actions, or was it under the user access one that you
It was
did
just under the user access for Frontier.
Okay.
So if
Okay,
you're
got
not
it.
seeing it, if you're a developer tenant, add a trial of E5.
Yes, it does, but it's not.
Does
I'll
it have
recheck.
full E5 or does it the developer E5?
I think
or
I have to
E3?
check. I'm not sure it has the full E5. I gotta go back and look.
Give it a full business, full something off of the trial, and then it will light it up.
Okay.
I'm almost guaranteeing you that.
Thank you.
Yep. Good question.
It is.
All right. I will
Anybody
stop
else have any
sharing here.
questions? Want to raise their hand and ask Pat?
I got one more theoretical question, if it's okay.
We
So
love your
let's say,
theoretical ones,
Pat,
Jeff.
you're as you are you're very influential, and either at RSM or at one of your customers, you get a 10,000 person enterprise to adopt these things very quickly, and they turn on. Everybody starts building their own search my email, search my stuff, and they'll trigger them to go off at 9 a.m. Now I know Microsoft has dealt with a lot of traffic in the cloud. Are we seeing, or does anybody know, is there challenges related to this being allowed users to do as many as they want? And I know the tenant can like scale up if it needs to, but has anybody seen any problems with this being overly used or happening all at once? A bunch of workflows happening at once. Anybody heard any problems with that?
I will be honest. I am not familiar with anyone having any problems. I think the answer is probably the scale up, scale down type of piece.
Agreed. Yep.
Not to rule it out. I'm sure it could be something. The workflow may not take, if everyone schedules something at 9 a.m., it may not take 3.5 seconds that day. It may take 4.8.
Yeah.
But based upon the API calls would be the delay there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Pat. I think it's a different beast as opposed to things like we've seen in Teams where there may be a performance hit behind the scenes just because of how Teams is. This is, it's scaled appropriately. That's the reason why we have data centers going up everywhere at Microsoft right now.
Sure, makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a whole terror around people building, shadow IT flows like this, but
Yeah.
I think that's why I wanted to introduce it here. When I had a chance, I was like, I feel like this could get its legs and be that Access database snowball rolling down the hill and not being able to stop. So whether you learned something or you just became more concerned over how to administer it, it was a good use of your afternoon today. That's how I look at it.
All right. Perfect.